It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today we're going to talk about Zabbix for monitoring all of your servers and services. Now, I've done a video on Zabbix in the past, and I've already got the show notes here, so you can go check that out. And in that video, I showed you how to get Zabbix up and running in Docker. Now, we're going to do that again. It's changed a little bit since that first video last year, so I'll go through those changes with you as well. But this time we're going to set up Zabbix, not just to set it up, but we're going to set it up to monitor our MSP business servers and eventually our client servers. And we'll be using our Netbird VPN to do that. And we're going to try to get Authentic set up in the future to make sure that we can authenticate to Zabbix through our authentication framework. And we've got so many things that we want to do on this video. It'll be a decent length video, but it's going to give you all of the stuff you need to get started and get set up, and I'll try to give you all the little tips I can think of as we go along. Now, I've done this several times. I've had a couple of times where my audio just didn't record. I don't know what's going on, but I'm redoing it, so it should be pretty straightforward. On that first video, I did the install and then OneMark50. If you haven't checked out his channel, I have links in the show notes and the descriptions. But he actually did the follow-up video to this where you're going to look at monitoring and alerting and inventory in Zabbix itself, so he helps you get all that stuff set up. So I'll leave that because it's still valid for today's video, and it's definitely worth you going and checking out. If you've never checked out his channel, he does some really incredible stuff, so definitely get over there and check that out as well. Alright, we're going to get into Zabbix setup and installation right after this. Now, in the previous video, I did show you how to do Docker install and all those kind of things. If you don't have Docker already set up on your server, if you haven't been following this series already, this is part 6 of a series where we're trying to build an MSP type business on open source software. So I've already given you a lot of this information on how to install Docker, how to get it set up, but it's the same process over and over really. So I wrote a script that helps you get this done very easily, and you can go get that. So I have this in the show notes, of course. All the instructions you need to get this done. You can get Docker, Docker CE, Nginx Proxy Manager if you need a reverse proxy. Everything installed with that script. It's very simple. You just copy and paste a line, change a permission, run the script, and answer a couple of questions, and it'll do the rest for you. And the questions are, what is your distro? And you just need to hit a number for the distribution you're using. And then, do you want to install Docker CE? Yes. Do you want to install Docker Compose? Yes. Do you want to install Nginx Proxy Manager? Yes or no, depending on what you have set up already. And there's a few more apps that I have in there that you can install, but you don't need for this particular video. And then once you're done, it's just going to get those things installed and up and running for you on your server. Makes it really straightforward. So to install Zabbix, we do need to do a few things, and I've already got a server set up. So I'm going to go back over here and show it to you. So this is my tools server. Now, I've got several servers set up already in my DigitalOcean VPC. I've got my IDP server, I've got my proxy server, and then I've also got my Netbird VPN server, and then this is my Ansible server here on my local network, but I'm going to show you how to use Ansible to push out the Zabbix agent to all of your various devices so that you don't have to do it one by one, because if you're just doing it for a few machines today, one by one might be fine. But as you get where you're growing and you have clients who have hundreds of machines, thousands of machines, you don't want to have to do those one by one. You want to be able to use something like Ansible to push that out to all those machines at once and get them all set up. So we'll go through that setup and what you're going to need for that as well. So we're going to do a lot in this video today, so stick with me. We're going to just really get into this and really get into it deep. But first I want to say thank you so very much to all of my patrons over at Patreon, all of my YouTube subscribers, and all the people who buy me a beer or a coffee through PayPal. I mean, I just cannot tell you how much it means to me that you appreciate my content, that you want to support me and continue to make that content every week. It means so much. If you haven't already done it, get out there and like this video with a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, so you'll get the information about new videos that I'm putting out about amazing open source software. I try to do a video every week. And then just make sure to tell other people about the channel if you have a chance, because I really want my channel to grow. I've been having a lot of growth. I make a little bit of money out of this. Some people ask me sometimes, hey, whenever we do this on Patreon or buy you a beer, where does that money go? Honestly, it goes to buy the hardware that I use to do these things, to pay for DigitalOcean server space. I contribute money back to open source constantly, so I added it up because somebody asked me. It's a little over $2,000 a year US that I contribute back into open source projects that I love and that I use, and you can see what those projects are over on my wiki pages here. I've got a page that tells you just about that. On top of that, there's just one-offs where I just give them a one-time donation, things like that too. So I'd say in a year I give away about probably $2,500 to $3,000, not give away, but pay $2,500 to $3,000 to open source projects because I love these projects and I want them to continue. So me trying to support them monetarily helps that. I can't do it all by myself for sure, But you guys, paying it in to me like this, I want to give that back to the community. And really, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. So thank you so much. Now let's get into this installation of Zabbix. So first, a couple things you're going to need. You're going to need a server. It can be at home. You can do this on your home network. You don't have to do it in DigitalOcean like I am. But if you want to, I do have a affiliate link down there. If you click on it, you'll get a 60-day trial with $50 or $100 credit. I don't remember which. But it's for you to try out DigitalOcean if you like it. And if you stay with the service and sign up and start paying them, I'll get a credit. That's all I get out of it. If you don't, it's okay. I don't get a credit. No big deal. If you prefer Linode, go use them. If you prefer Hetzner, go use them. If you prefer Oracle Free Tier, go do that. It's fine. But you need a server of some kind that you can start with. So we're going to have that. You need to make sure you have Git, curl, and wget installed. And in my show notes right here, I tell you how to do that for Ubuntu and Debian, for Fedora, CentOS, and Red Hat, for Arch. And then if you're doing this for OpenSUSE, I think it's Zypper. You'll use Zypper. Hopefully you know how to install applications already. So once we've done that, we want to have a Docker folder. So I'll go back over here. If you don't have one already, just do mkdir docker, hit enter, and it'll create a Docker folder. Okay. And then we're just going to move into that Docker folder. And if I do an ls, you'll see I've only got Zamod running right now. That's fine. So we're going to just go grab the information that we need from the Git repo for Zabbix. So I'm just going to grab this address right here in this command. It says git clone, and go git clone the Zabbix Docker stuff. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it right here. And it's going to pull that down. It's going to get everything pulled down for us. And if we cd into that Zabbix folder now, that Zabbix Docker folder, we can ls, and you'll see there's a lot of stuff here. So the last time we did this, I used this file here to actually get everything up and running, but this time I'm going to use their compose file. Now this compose file has two other files that it kind of depends on, so it pulls information from this. And there's a few things we can do to start this up, and we're going to start it up in a couple of steps. So the first thing we need to do is actually update some environment variables. So let's do cd env_vars, just like that. And we'll clear this out. And if I do an ls, you don't see a lot there. So we need to do ls-al, and you'll see there's a bunch of files that start with a dot. Anything that starts with a dot is a hidden file or hidden folder on the Linux systems. So that's why you have to do that -a at the very least, and -a will just make some line up like this and we get some details about them. So we're going to edit this file here, this MySQL_password and this MySQL_root password. So I'm just going to clear this out, and we're going to use a command, and we're going to do open SSL space rand, which means random, and then space -- base 64 all together, and then space 32. So we want it to create a random string of characters that are in base 64, and we want it to be 32 characters long. So we just hit enter, and it generates one for us, and we're just going to do one more. We're going to do open. We're just going to repeat that command. We can just hit the up arrow and do it again. And you see we get two different strings here. That's great. We're going to use the first one for our MySQL password and the second one for our MySQL root password. So I'm just going to highlight and copy this first one. I'm going to do Control-Shift-C to copy, or you can right-click and do copy, whichever. And then I'm going to do nano.mysql_password, like that. And I'm just going to get rid of this Zabbix password right here. And I'm just going to Control-Shift-V to paste, like Victor. Now, I don't know if MySQL likes some of these characters, so we're just going to stick with uppercase, lowercase, and numbers. So I'm just going to change this to something else. And I'll go change this slash to a number and make sure I don't see any other special characters mixed in there, just so we don't have any trouble. I'm going to save that with Control-O, hit enter, and then Control-X to exit. Now I'm going to do the same thing for this root password here. So I'm going to use that for the root password. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to do nano.mysql_root, and then password, just like that. And again, I'm going to get rid of this one that they have. I'm going to Control-Shift-V to paste in my other one. And I'll get rid of that one and put in a number, and I'll look for any other special characters here. I don't see any. I think we're set. So I'm just going to do Control-O to save, Control-X to exit, and we've got that set. We can do cd ... That'll take us back one level. You should be back in the Docker, Zabbix Docker folder. I'm going to do a Control-L just to clear out my terminal there to make it easy for you. And we're going to look at our Docker Compose file. We need to adjust some ports. So I'm going to do sudo lsof -n -P I think it's L pipe grep, and I think that's listen is what we want. I'm going to put in my super user password. Nope. Oh, it did give me everything, except it gave me too much. I didn't want quite everything here. But what I'm looking for is these ports. So you can see port 8080 is in use already. I've already got it on being used inside of Docker. So I can't keep using that one, so I need to change something. So that's one command you can do to see what ports you have in use. And if you see it's telling us, hey, this is in use already for Docker. So I'm going to do Control L just to clear that out again. And I'm going to do an ls. And I want to go and make an adjustment inside this file right here. So we're going to do nano compose underscore Zabbix, and it'll finish it if we just hit tab. And we're going to go way down to this part that says Web Nginx. It's way down here. I think if we type W Web Nginx, yeah, it'll jump us down there. Okay, so Control W is search in Nano, and then you can type in what you're searching for, and it's Web-Nginx. And right here we've got this little port mapping. So it's got a placeholder for this environment variable, but this environment variable is not defined anywhere. So we're going to get rid of this guy. We're going to leave the double quotes, and we're going to put in 8052. And right here, and it doesn't matter what port you pick, it just needs to be a port that you're not already using. Same thing for this 8443 port. We're just going to do 8043, and that's fine. And make sure I get an 8 there, 8043. There we go. We're going to do Control O and enter to save our changes, and then Control X to exit. We've now done everything we need to do to make the changes to these Docker Compose files and to get everything ready to bring it up. Now, like I said, there's two phases of this. We're going to do the first phase, which is going to bring down just the stuff that we need. So we're going to do Docker space compose and pull. And that should bring down all of the images we need. Now, I may already have these images. I can't remember. I know I've done testing, but I can't remember if I got rid of them or not. So we're going to do that. When you hit enter, it's going to go grab those ones that it needs. All right, so we got our Docker Compose pull done. Now we want to bring everything up and watch the logs to make sure that things get started correctly. So we're going to do Docker Compose up-d 2 ampersands Docker Compose logs-f, just like that. And this says, I want Docker Compose to go bring up those containers for the images I just pulled down, and I want it to run them in the background in a detached mode or as a daemon. And then over here it says, after that, I want Docker Compose to show me the log output of those things starting up so I can keep an eye on it. So we're going to hit enter. It's going to start these up. It's going to wait for a few seconds until my SQL Server starts up and gets running where it can attach to it. So just be patient. Now it's going to create this Zabbix schema in MySQL. So again, be patient. This could take a while. It just depends. Just let it run. As long as you're not seeing errors, just let it go. Alright, so once we've got Zabbix up and running, we can just Control-C to stop the logs from running, and clear out the terminal, and let's go over to our browser. Let's get the IP address here, IP-BR-4A, like this. And we want this public IP address right here for ETH0. So we're going to grab that. We'll just Control-Shift-C. We'll go over to our browser, open up a new tab, and we'll paste it in. And then we're going to go to 8052 is the port that we mapped. And there's our Zabbix login. Now, we can log into Zabbix with the default user, and we'll go through that in a minute, and we want to change that. But first, let's go set this up with our reverse proxy so that we can actually access it through a domain name. So if we go to our proxy server here, we're just going to click on add a new host. Now what this is this creates a way that I can say I want something.mydomain.com to go to my public Nginx proxy manager server. It receives that request and it says, do I have monitor.sysmainit.com in my list of domains? If I do, then I want to send it along to the right server on the right port so that you can access it using this address. So this reverse proxy just acts as exactly like what it sounds like. You're going to go to monitor.sysmainit.com, well, of course monitor.whatever your domain is.com. It's going to hit your reverse proxy, Your reverse proxy is going to look that up in its list and say, do I have an address for that? And if it does, it'll send you along to that address. If it doesn't, it's going to give you a page that just says congratulations, or maybe an error page if you set that up. So it really helps a lot. And you don't have to use Nginx Proxy Manager. I use it. I think it's a very easy one to set up. There's traffic, there's caddy, there's straight up Nginx if you just want to set it up in Nginx config files. If you know how to do that, great. There's also one called Zabbix. I've been looking at it. I haven't gotten it working yet, but I'm working on it. So some different options for you there. So now I want to put in the private IP address of this server, and I want to use my VPC server's IP address. So I can go back over here into my terminal, actually, where I just brought up all my IP addresses, and I can find this one that says ETH1, and that's the one I want to use. So I'm just going to copy that one, Control-Shift-C. Go back to my Nginx Proxy Manager. I'm going to paste that IP address right in here. So monitor this server I'm on, tools, and my proxy server, and my NetBird server, and my Authentic server are all on the same internal virtual private network for DigitalOcean, a VPC as they call it. So we've got that set, and then I'm going to put in that port 8052. I'm going to tell it to block common exploits and WebSocket support, and then we're going to jump to the SSL tab here, and I'm going to tell it request a new certificate, force SSL, HTTP2 support, and I agree to Let's Encrypt in terms of service. My email's there. I'm just going to hit save. Now this can take a few seconds, maybe 20, 30 seconds sometimes, just depends. But if this dialog just goes away with no error message, we should be set. And it did. And we should now have monitor in our list, and it's right here. So if we click on that, that's going to open us up, and we've got our SSL certificate. We're hitting it with HTTPS, which is great. So we've got a secure connection to our server. So we can close this one that we opened with the IP address, and we can just log in with our default credentials right here. So I'm going to put in admin and Zabbix, all lowercase, and admin is in uppercase. And now that's the default admin login. We don't really want that, but when you come in, you'll see you have a dashboard that's already set up. Now I've got this zoomed in to make it easier for you guys to see, but if you zoom out, this is what it generally looks like. I'm just going to zoom it back up so you can see what I'm doing. So the first thing I want to do is secure this. I'm going to go over to users. Then I'm going to go down to the sub option of users as well. And you'll see we've got that admin option there. So I need to add a new user. So to add things in Zabbix, it's a little confusing. Sometimes you think, oh, I'm going to type here and click add. No, this is the search. This is like your filter stuff. To add stuff, you usually go up to this upper right corner. So click there. And we're going to give this user a username. I'm going to put in Brian. It's already typed in from my testing. So my first name dot my last name, and then my full name here. Group. Let's see. You can select the groups here. So I want to go in the internal group and the Zabbix administrators group. So if you don't know where I came up with this, I'll show you in just a minute. On the password, I've already got a strong password set up for this site, so I'll go grab it real quick, copy it out of my password manager, and I'll paste it in here twice to confirm it. Theme, I'll go ahead and just do dark theme. Don't want to auto log in. If you want people to be auto logged out, you can check this box and they'll get auto logged out after however many minutes you define. Now it has 15 in there by default. That's a pretty good practice, but for now you can leave it unchecked until we get everything set up. Refresh every 30 seconds, so everything else here looks okay. Now we got to go up to the top. There's some tabs here. We don't need anything on this tab right now, but on this permissions tab, we do need to set up a role, and we want to be the super administrator. So type in SUP, and it should give you all of the stuff you need for that. There's the super administrator. Everything should be set, and it gives us all of the details we need. And now we can click on add, and that added our new user. And if you look, the way that I knew what groups to grab, I looked here for the user role, super administrator. That's why I set that one. And then the groups were internal and Zabbix administrators for that default admin, so that's what I set. Now for this default admin, we can click on the admin name to get into it. And here we want to go and change the password. We want to give it something that's stronger. So we definitely want to give it a much better, stronger password than it has. All right, so you type in the current password and then your new password twice, and you can hit update. Now it logged us out, so I'm going to log back in with my new user. All right, I'm logged back in with my new user, and everything seems to be working well now. All right, so you've got everything up and running. We've got the dashboard going. We're setting and we're accessing this through HTTPS, so we're doing a pretty great job. You'll notice here that it says we've already got one host, but it's not available. This is going to be the server itself, and the reason it's not available is that we don't have it running yet with the Docker agent. So let's go get that set up first. It's a little bit kind of weird compared to the other setups, and then we'll go through the regular proxy setup. Now, one of the ways we can look at this is to go to Docker Compose and do PS when we're in this folder, and it's going to show us the different containers that are already running. So we've got the server container and the Zabbix. We've got the MySQL server, the regular server, the Web Nginx server. So we've got all those things running already, but we actually need to get some more servers running. So I'm going to clear this out, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a different thing. I'm going to do Docker Compose, and we're going to add a couple of tags here. So -- profile, so profile, space all, and then we're going to do pull. So we're going to pull down everything. So inside of those 3 different files that I talked about that have dependencies, the compose.yaml, compose Zabbix components.yaml, and compose databases.yaml, there's some tags in there. So if we put all, it'll say, hey, pull down everything that has the tags in it. So we're going to do that. And you'll see it's going to start pulling a whole lot of containers for us here. So we'll just be patient while it does that. All right, so once that finishes, you'll notice one of the containers that it pulled is the agent container. And that's great because it's going to run the agent inside of Docker, which means it can connect to our server directly inside the Docker network. We just need to figure out where that is. But before we do that, we got to start all these containers running. So we're just going to do Docker Compose -- profile space all, and then up -d. So we're just telling it, hey, for everything I just pulled down, I also want you to bring it up as a container now. So we're going to hit enter. It's going to check the ones we already had started, but it's also going to start up some other containers for us. So now we can do Docker Compose PS again, and now you can see we've got a lot more stuff running. And if you look here, you'll see up for 2 hours. That's the first set of things that I started. So all those say 2 hours. And the rest of these say about 55 seconds, 56 seconds. If we clear that and we do it again, we'll see now about a minute. So a little over a minute, something like that. So these things are up and running, which is great. So we'll clear this out. Now we need to do Docker PS. And we're going to get a bunch of information about all of the containers, including the Zammad containers. But what we're looking for is first this Docker Zabbix Agent 1, Docker Zabbix Server 1. So we've got this agent. We're going to grab this key. So here's the agent. So it's right here is the key. So I'm going to grab that, copy it. I'm going to do Docker inspect and then that key. It's going to give me a bunch of output. One of the things I'm looking for is the IP address of this particular container, which is 172.26.239.6. Okay, so I need to just keep that in mind. So I'm just going to take that and I'm going to put it in just a little text editor file. So let's just do text edit. So that's our agent. And then let's go look at our actual server. So if we do Docker PS again, we're going to find our server in this list. So here's Zabbix Docker Zabbix Server 1. I know this is kind of weird because it wraps right there, but here's our ID for that one. So we're going to grab it and we're going to do, and we'll do the same thing, Docker inspect with that ID. And then here we're going to grab this IP address. So that's our server IP address. So let's just grab that. Let's go put it into our file here, and this is the server. Okay, we're going to need these 2 IP addresses for the server configuration setup. So we can clear this out, and now we need to go into the actual agent itself. So we're going to say Docker exec -it. So it's going to be Zabbix Docker Zabbix agent 1, and we want our bash shell. So we're telling it, hey Docker, I want you to put me into an interactive terminal, and I want it to be on this container, and I want you to give me a bash shell. So we're going to do that. We're going to hit enter. And if you look up here, it says Brian at Tools, and here we've got the ID of that container, and here we're in a certain path. Now we need to go to, we're going to cd/etc/Zabbix, and if we do an ls, here's our Zabbix agent D and Zabbix agent D.conf. We need to edit that conf file. Now there's no nano inside of our Docker container, so we're going to have to use vi. So we're going to do vi Zabbix agent D.conf like this. Now in VI, you press I to get into insert mode. So I'm going to press I, and if you watch the bottom of the screen down here, you'll see it change. And you see how the little I came up? That means we're in insert mode. So we're just going to use the down arrow here. We're going to move down until we see a piece that says source IP. It's not too far down. Right here, we see this piece that says source IP. That's the IP address of our agent. So we're going to go grab that from our little editor here. We're going to copy that in. And we're just going to Control-Shift-V to paste it. We're going to keep moving down, and we've got to find the part that says server. It's not too far down. So here's our server, and it's got Zabbix server automatically. We don't want that. We want to take that out, and we want to grab this IP address that we just got for the server. We're going to copy it, and then Control-Shift-V will paste it in. Now we need to paste that IP address in one more spot for the active server. So we're going to go down, and we'll see one that says server active. And right here where it says server active, we want to change this. We're just going to change this to Control-Shift-V for that IP address. And we're going to hit Control-O. Or actually, no, we're going to do escape to get out of insert mode. So when you do escape, you shouldn't see the little I there anymore. We're going to type in :WQ, lowercase. And that means write out my changes and then get out of VI. So we're going to get out of it. There we go. So we've made our changes. Now we're still inside of our container. So we need to exit that. So we're type exit, hit enter, and you should be back at your normal shell now. Now we're just going to restart that container. So we're going to say Docker restart. And we're going to type in Zabbix-Docker-Zabbix-agent-1. And it restarts it for us, and that should restart that service inside of that container so that it starts trying to connect to our server. Now it may take a few minutes, it may take a minute, it may take a few seconds, but it's gonna take a little time. But it should connect to our server here, and this should change. So if we go look at monitoring and hosts, one other change we need to make before that's going to actually change is we need to click on this host, and we need to go here to the host option in the pop-up menu. And right here it has this IP address, and it says 127.0.0.1. It's not on localhost, so we need to take that out. And we need to go back and grab that agent IP address right here. We're just going to copy it. We're going to go back right in here, and we're just going to paste that in right there. And then we're going to click on update. And there it goes. It's green. So now we should be able to go back to our dashboards. And we'll see that we've got a 1, and we're actually seeing some information now about our server showing up here in the CPU usage, and it's extremely low, which is great. That's what we want. So we're getting some information from our Docker agent. That's great. On our Docker server, that's awesome. But we also want to add our other machines to this server. So first I'm going to go through the manual setup on one server just so you can see it. And then we'll go through using Ansible to push it out to multiple servers at once so you can see and understand that. So we're going to add a machine just manually first so we can see how it's done. Now I'm going to just use my, let's just use the Netbird VPN server because that's what we're going to start with for the rest of the machines anyways. So I'm going to go back over to my terminal here, and I'm going to go over to my Netbird terminal, and I'll just do an IP-BR-4A, and that's going to show you all my IP addresses here. So when we do that, we've got the public IP address of our server here. Of course, we've got the localhost address, our loopback address, and then we've got the VPC address. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, wait, this is your Netbird server. Isn't it inside of your Netbird network somewhere? And it is, but it's inside of the Docker container itself in this case because we've got Netbird running in Docker. So not a big deal. We're going to use the VPC address to set up our actual container communication between this server and our monitoring system. So to do this, we've got Netbird running on an Ubuntu server in this case. So I'm just going to do sudo apt update. Make sure I get all of the updates that it needs from all the package repositories real quick. Now we do have some upgrades available as well. I'll do those after the video, but for now we're just going to do sudo apt install Zabbix-agent, just like this. And then we'll put a -y just so it won't prompt us. And we can just say OK and tab to OK there. It's just restarting some services for us, no big deal. So now we're going to do the same thing we did on the other server. We're going to do sudo nano /etc/zabbix and then Zabbix agent d.conf like that. So we're going to just edit that file. And in here we're going to go down until we see the source IP address. So we want to make sure we set that first. So right here is source IP, so we'll just remove that hashtag in front of it like that. And we'll save as we go. So we just do Control O and Enter to save. Now we're going to go down and we're going to put in the actual IP address of our server. So we're going to go down here and look for the one that says server IP. And it always puts in localhost. In this case, we don't want that. So we're going to just go over to our server and we'll just do a Control L. We'll do IP-BR-4A. And again, we're looking at this ETH1 address and it's right here. We're just going to grab that with Control-Shift-C. We'll go back to our NetBird server and we'll paste with Control-Shift-V. And now we want to put that same address down here in the active server area. Server active. We're just going to paste that in and then we need to take out that hashtag in front of it right there. We're going to save with Control-O and Enter and then Control-X to exit. Now we'll come right back to this, but first we need to go to Zabbix. We're going to go to Monitoring and then Hosts. And we're going to add a new host. So remember, if you type here your filtering, you want to go over here and click. And we're going to call this our NetBird server. We can give it a visible name, so we can call this NetBird VPN. The templates we want, you can pick from all kinds of templates, but we want the Linux template by Zabbix Agent right here, Linux by Zabbix Agent. And in the host group, we're going to put this in sysmain IT like that, and it's new, so we'll just click on new. That's fine. We need to add an interface, so we're going to click on add, and then we're going to click on agent. And right here where it says 127.0.0.1, we're going to back that off. And we're going to go grab that IP address from our NetBird server here. So we just want to get this same address that we already used. We're just going to do Control-Shift-C. And then we're going to do Control-V to paste it in. Make sure we have IP selected, and then we've got the address, this port here, 150, so 10050. We don't really need any of this other information. Now there's other tabs up here, so you can go in and put in other information on these tabs if you want to. It's not something you have to do, but it could help you track the machines as your number of machines grows. But for now we're good, so we're just going to add that host, and you'll see here we've got that host. Now it's red or it's black because it's trying to figure out, like, can I reach that host right now? Now we've set everything up over here on the terminal, but we need to restart the Zabbix service. So we're going to do sudo systemctl restart zabbix-agent.service, just like that. We're going to let it restart, and then we'll go back over here, and if we just wait, a few seconds, depending on when it refreshes and when it grabs the information, you should see this turn green. Alright, so we've got our first server set up, and you can see it shows up right here as 2, but you notice you don't see it in the CPU stuff. That's just because there's a filter set here, so if we go into the actual photos themselves, it's looking for one called Zabbix server. We don't want that. We want Linux. We want to go to the host groups, and we want to do Linux servers right there. We may need to go put that on our actual servers. And then we're going to hit apply. And yeah, we don't see anything, so we can go back to our hosts and we can add that to both of our hosts. Oh, we didn't save our changes. Let's save our changes to our dashboard. Glad it warns us. And then we'll go back to our hosts and we'll just click in and we'll go to host. And right here in host groups, we can also do Linux servers and update. Same way here, hosts, and on the host group we can do Linux servers and update. And now if we go back to our dashboard, now we can see the CPU information for both of those different servers. So you can set this up to group and filter by a lot of things, and you can rearrange this dashboard in lots of different ways. So I've shown you how to set up the actual Docker agent itself, and now just a server manually doing it. Now let's go and actually set up a couple of servers using Ansible, and actually kind of showing you that you can do multiple servers at once and get them added to your system with all of the things that you want. So I'm logged into my Ansible server, and this is the server that I used on the last video. And I've gone into my Ansible home folder that I started with the last video, and I created a new one called Ansible Zabbix Agents. And if we do an ls, you'll see here I've got a host file, so we'll look at that first. Then I've got this file that says install Zabbix agent.yaml, and then I've got this one called add Zabbix agent.yaml. These are really this is a copy of this one, so I'll probably use this one because I've made modifications and I need to just get rid of this one. Then I've got this remove Zabbix host. So if you make a mistake or you see there's a problem, you're trying to do something, this is a handy little tool that can help you remove it if you need to. And then of course we've got test vars files, so we can kind of see how we're coming across these things. So I had to do some learning to get this down. I'm sure some of you guys who are more Ansible pros can give me some tips. You've already given me some great tips just from the Ansible video. I'll try to apply some of those here, but let's just look at our host file first. So if we just do cat hosts, you'll see here I've just got a group called sysmainit, and then I've got my actual file or my actual server, idp.sysmain.com and proxy.sysmain.com. And for each of those, I've created an Ansible host entry with their actual netbird IP address. So I just went to my netbird system, grabbed their VPN address off of that, and then made sure my Ansible system was on the VPN. So if I just do an IP-BR-4A, you'll see right here, so I've got WT0, and there it is right there. So there's my Ansible system running on my netbird system, which is great because that means I can reach them through the netbird VPN and nothing's going out of the open internet. And this is just my private LAN address down here, so we're doing great. So we'll just create a file here called ansible.cfg. So we're just going to do nano ansible.cfg. And in here, I'm just going to paste in something I've already got, and we're just going to change this inventory. We want this to be equal to hosts, and our private key file is this file actually. So that's what we want. We want to use this Ansible key that we set up in the previous video. So I'm just going to Control O to save that, Control X to exit, and we just don't have to tell it which inventory and which private key file to use. In this case, it should just use that by default. Now we want to make sure that our hosts have our public key on them already. So I'm going to do SSH copy -ID, and I want to send -i // Ansible, and I want to send that to Brian and I want to go grab the correct netbird IP address for these guys. So I want to send the one for my proxy. So I'm going to grab that, and I'm just going to Control-Shift-V to paste it in. And it's going to prompt me, do I want to allow this? Yes. And it's going to send my private key. And it says I've got that key added. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use the IP address of my IDP server. So I'm going to grab that IDP server's address right here, copy it. I'm just going to paste it in over here. And I think I already have it on there, so let's just see. And it says it added the key, so okay, maybe it wasn't there yet, so that's good. So now, I should be pretty well set, but let's look at this add Zabbix agent YAML. So I'm calling the host all. I say become the actual super user. Okay, then I give it a task. My first task is install the Zabbix agent on Ubuntu. So we're going to call the apt module. We're going to use that to install the file or the actual name of Zabbix agent. So when we did it before, it was apt install Zabbix agent. Remember, so that's what we're doing. And then we want to update the cache so that it makes sure that it's got the most recent version of it. Next, we're going to configure the Zabbix agent. So this is where I needed to make sure I could get those IP addresses. So we're going to go in here and we're going to say, okay, I've got this path, etsy/zabbix/zabbixagentd.conf. That's where that file should exist on these servers. And then I'm creating a couple of variables. So one is the item for regular expression and item for replace. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a regular expression. We're going to look for this line that says server equals 127.0.0.1 because that's what it says when it installs the Zabbix agent by default, if you'll remember. So we're going to look for that, and we're going to replace it with the server equals the Zabbix server. So now this is my Zabbix server address. So I'm actually going to get the right address and make sure it's in here, but I believe this is the correct address. So let's just go look. That's going to be the one for tools. So if we look at tools, it is 118. So we've got that one set already. So I'm going to scroll a little bit. This is where we were right here. So it's going to use that right here and right here. Now, it's going to grab this thing when it gathers facts. It's going to grab the host name of the server, so it's going to use that in its Ansible host name. Now, the one thing I can't just tell it, because I have multiple times that we're going to run this on different machines, is I need the source IP. So if you remember the source IP, we want to find that. We want to find that line that says hashtag source IP equals, and it's just blank. So we're going to go out there, we're going to say replace that with source IP equals, and we want it to grab Ansible, facts, the WT0 interface, the IPv4 address for that interface. So this is the name of our interface with a Netbird VPN. It's WT0. So that's really nice because we know what we're looking for, and we can tell it go grab that address and use that for our source IP. So for each client, when it connects, it's going to say, hey, I've got that address. Let me just throw that in here for you, and it'll get it set correctly every time. For the server and the server active, we already know that address. It's the same for every machine, so we can just put it here, and then it'll grab it and use it. So we're set for that to be able to go in and set up that configuration. Once it does that, we want it to start the service. So we're going to tell it, hey, use this module called service. The service name is Zabbix agent. And we want it to be started and enabled. So we're going to start the service and enable it, which means 1, start it and make it run. 2, if the system reboots, I want it to automatically start on its own. That's the enabled part. Now we need an API token. So I'll show you how to generate this token. This is an old token. It's not valid anymore, but we're going to generate this token inside of our Zabbix server. So it says set the API token. We're going to use this built-in object called setFact, and it's part of Ansible. And it's going to be the Ansible _Zabbix _auth _key. So all of that stays the same. Between the quotes, you would replace this key with your key, of course. So I'm just going to get rid of this because we're going to need a new key. And then we're going to tell it, hey, whenever you do this, we also need you to create a new host in the Zabbix web user interface. So we're going to use the Zabbix API for that. That's why we're getting the API token. So to do that, it says, hey, here's the network that we're going to be working on. So community.zabbix.zabbix, that's the network OS. That's just, it stays like that. Don't change it. We're going to use the HTTP API. It's going to be 443. We want to use SSL. We don't need to validate the certificate. Ansible Zabbix URL path is just empty. Now, I'll show you what this is about in a minute, but it's important that you know that that just needs to be 2 quotes. If you're setting this up not in Docker, it might change and you'll have to kind of know how to figure that out, but there's a special command we can use to try to work through it. So this is the Ansible host is what it's called, but this is actually looking for the Zabbix host name. So I want to give it monitor.sysmainit.com so that it knows where to go to hit the API. So it says become false. It doesn't need to be super user to do this. It's going to use the Zabbix host information, and we're going to scroll down. And this is kind of fill in the blank for you. So I just put it in as IDP. This isn't actually going to be the right host name, so I could use just Ansible _host. And I could just do it again, Ansible _host, like that. And then this doesn't have to have anything for description. It's not required. I'm going to go up and make sure I'm typing the Ansible host correctly, but I think I am, yeah. Ansible host name, that's what we want to use, not Ansible host. So name, and that needs to be curly braces. So now we've got that set where it'll grab the host name for us. The host groups, mine is sysmainit, like this. Let me go double check and make sure I've set it correctly with the spelling, because it is spelling and capitalization dependent, so we want to make sure we get it set right. Now, if you don't know all your host groups, you can go down here to data collection, and this gives you a list of all your host groups that are available. So I've got this one called Linux servers. I'm just going to copy that so I can just use it over here. And what I'll do is I'll go out to the end of the line here, and I'll just paste that in like that. And then over here we've got this Linux template. So again, this is capitalization dependent, so make sure that you get this and you can copy it. Again, you can go back here, you can go to data collection, and you can go to your templates or your template groups, either one, but you can start filtering. So if you just need to filter it by Linux and then hit filter, you should get the one Linux by Zabbix agent. You can copy that and then you can go and paste it in just like we just did. Then you want status to be enabled, status to be present, which means it's going to be there. If we change this to absent, it means it'll remove it from the system. So this is how we do the removal in the other YAML file. Inventory mode is manual, that's fine. Inventory Zabbix, so tags, I just gave it a couple of tags here. It's tag and its alias is fine. We've got a few different things, and then we've got Ubuntu 2204, it's a DigitalOcean VPS. These are all correct for everything I've got. And then again, I'm telling it, go grab that IP address that we need. So there's the IP. And then we've got the port that we want it to be running on, so that's set. And then we tell it, hey, once you've done all of those things, restart the Zabbix agent. We want to make sure that the server talks to the agent correctly, so we've got to restart that agent just like we did in real life. So we've set up this nice little script that'll help us get all this stuff done. So let's go grab an API key. So we're going to go to users and then API tokens. And you'll see I don't have any API tokens right now, so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to add an API token. I'm going to give it a name, and this is going to be video test token. The user is me, so I can just start typing and then pick my name. I can give it a description if I want to, but it's not required. But then I can also have it expire. So I can say, you know what, today's the second, I expect to use it today, so I'll let it expire on the 4th just to make sure it's not valid for anybody else when the video comes out. And I'll hit add. Now when you get this little pop-up, you need to copy this token right then. And you can do it this way and copy, or you can click copy to clipboard. So I clicked it. I'm not going to close that yet. I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to do nano add. I'm going to go all the way down to that API token section, and I'm just going to put that API token right there. I'm going to save with Control O, enter, and Control X to exit. Now I can go back over here and I can close this, and there's my API. So now I'm going to hit that API whenever I run this. So I'm going to do Ansible -playbook. I don't need to tell it what file apparently because I put it in the config, and I don't need to tell it what key to use because I put it in the config. But I needed to tell it which play to run. So I'm going to say add, and then I'm going to say --ask-become-pass. Let's see if it'll work this way. So it asked me for the password. Oh, it didn't like something. So I think I need double quotes around this. Let me just put them here. And then we'll just hit that again. I'm going to get rid of that space. We'll save, Control X, and let's just try this again. All right, it's trying to gather facts. It's going to install the Zabbix agent. So it tells us that it gathered the facts on Proxy and IDP. That's a good start. All right, it says it changed IDP, so that one's done. It's got the agent installed. My Proxy server is a little bit of a light server. I might need to increase it a little bit, but we'll see how it does. It takes a little bit longer to run things for sure. All right, so Zabbix did what it was supposed to do. It worked on the IDP system, but it failed on my Proxy server. Now, I do think I know what happened. I'll have to go back and look, but it's got all this jargon that it failed, and it's like cache update time. So it ran the update. I think it updated the cache properly, and then it prompted probably during the install, like it put a prompt on the screen. Sometimes you see that when I do my videos, and I don't know how to deal with that yet for Ansible, so it timed out essentially. So when it did, it just kept running, which was great because it said, hey, let's go ahead and configure the Zabbix agent. So it configured it on sysmain IT, and if you look, It replaced this with the proper IP addresses that we needed, and it replaced our source IP with the source IP for IDP, and it gave it the host name IDP, which is what we expect. Then it came on down and it said, okay, start the Zabbix agent service, and then it created got the API token, created the new host inside of our Zabbix system, and then it restarted the service, and then it gave us our readout. So the proxy agent didn't get there, but there was a problem. That's not an issue with Ansible, that's an issue with my server, so I need to go check that and fix it. But I hope you get the gist of, you could use Ansible to do a lot of these, and even if they fail, if you're successful on 90% of them, you've saved yourself a lot of work. So let's go back over here and just go back to our dashboard. And we do see that we now have 3, and we can see we've got IDP, and it's showing us our output, and we've got everything running. So I've shown you how to set up Zabbix, how to get the agent installed, how to use Ansible to install the agent, how to get some things going. You can kind of go crazy checking out the Zabbix documentation. It is really good, and there's a ton of it. So you can really get out there and start setting things up to get read as you want it to be read. Zabbix can also deal with Windows hosts and Mac OS hosts and other types of hosts. So definitely get out there and install that. Learn about it, learn how to use it, learn how to configure it so that you can make sure that you're giving your clients the absolute best capabilities out of the box with your MSP service. And monitoring is such an important part of that I wanted to make sure we had a really powerful tool to use and move forward with. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along on the open source journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.